guys, it's Shelby. I'm outside today because it's so beautiful outside, so you might hear some cars go by. Today I want to talk about what actually happens when you text or call a suicide/crisis hotline. So let's jump right into it. A trained volunteer crisis counselor, and I've been a trained volunteer crisis counselor for 2 years now. I work with a company called CrisisTextLine. You may have heard of it. It's the first suicide hotline of its kind. Basically, you don't have to call. You text in. You can text the number at any time, 24/7 at 741-741. And you'll be connected to a real person who you can text, until you're at a more calm place. So it's different that you can text it, mainly because if you're in a position where maybe you're scared to talk on the phone, maybe it's dangerous for you to talk on the phone, maybe you're around someone that you don't want to know, you don't want them to know that you're talking to a counselor. So it's a really awesome service, but there's so many other services that do actually talking on the phone. So if that's something you're interested in, there's so many of those as well. Before I volunteered for Crisis Text Line, I'd actually used the service before. So as y'all seen in my last video, I do struggle with mental illness. I've had moments where I was in crisis before. One of the very first moments ever being when me and my therapist had to end our relationship because she was moving. It was a very stressful time for me, and so I called a hotline just to kind of get some advice. Even though I'll kind of get into it, that's not really what they're there for. I'll explain that more later though. I've seen both sides of utilizing a crisis text line. I've been both the counselor and the counselee. So first things first though, what's the first thing that happens when you text or call in? So when you first text, you might get some sort of automated message, usually something like, "Hi, welcome to Crisis Text Line," or "Hi, whatever, you are the second person in line," or "the wait is estimated to be this long," or something like that. A lot of times there's multiple people that are calling in at once, and so sometimes you're gonna call, and especially if it's a busy night, like weekends are usually more busy than weekdays, and all the counselors that are working might have someone. So, but don't worry, it should only be a couple minutes before someone gets to you. A real person, absolutely real, on the other side of a computer, will be talking to you as soon as they're available. So once someone is talking to you, they're probably going to ask you for a couple of things. Usually they ask for your name, just your first name, your age, and maybe your pronouns, depending on what counselor you get. So they ask your name and your age for two reasons. So your age, or your name, makes things a little bit more personal. You can talk to the person and be like, "Okay, Natalie, let's sit down and talk about this." Or an age is really just to kind of figure out how we should talk to you. So, because you're not going to talk to like a 10-year-old child and a 30-year-old adult the same way. So, and we really do hear from people of all ages, all genders, sexualities, races, religions. I mean, every person of every walk of life, comes and experiences crisis at some point in their life. So our whole job when we're online is helping people. So they accept you as you are, however that may be, and get you from a place of really intense, maybe scary emotions to a cool and calm place. That is our whole job. So that brings me to what happens next. After we talk about your situation, we're going to do what we call a risk assessment. A risk assessment is how we assess if you're feeling suicidal and to what extent you're feeling suicidal. And we're going to be very blunt. We're going to ask you straight out, are you thinking about killing yourself tonight? That's been proven to be the most accurate way. It's completely false that it puts the idea in people's heads. There's been a lot of research on it. And honesty from you is crucial at that point. I know it's so scary to be like, yeah, I'm feeling like I want to kill myself. That's a very hard thing to admit. But it's important for you guys to know that we will not call the authorities unless you are in imminent danger. Imminent meaning like you need medical attention immediately, or you need someone to intervene because you're going to hurt yourself or hurt somebody else. Otherwise, we will get nobody else involved. We won't call parents. We don't have that power. We do have the power to call police and medical services, but that is a last resort. That's worst case scenario. If you need help, we are able to call. So We also do not report if you share that you've been sexually assaulted. I know a lot of people are like mandatory reporters. We unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, if you want it to be a secret, can't report. We're also not supposed to give any type of advice. So if you're coming and being like, well, should I go to the cops? We're not going to tell you yes or no. It's going to be more of, you know, what do you think you should do? We're going to try and help you come to that solution yourself, because it's impossible to know anyone's situation through just a couple of text messages. So our main goal is not to give you advice, not to tell you what to do, but to keep you calm and out of danger's reach, you know, completely safe, calm, and in a good place, you know, to end the conversation eventually. So when it has been determined that you are safe, after we ask, you know, all the questions about it, because if you have any type of suicidal ideation, we're going to get a little bit more specific. We're going to ask, you know, like, do you have a plan? Do you have a time that you know you want to do it? You know, have you thought it out? Because that means that you're in more danger. If you've thought those things out and you know what you're going to do, that makes the situation a little bit more tense and a little bit more extreme. And, you know, we want you to get out of the room with whatever you're planning on hurting yourself with. We want you to maybe find someone that you trust or keep talking to us until we know you're safe. So sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes it takes 2. I've talked to people for only 15 minutes, you know. So when it has been determined that you are safe, we usually try to wrap up the conversation so we can talk to someone else that needs help. And I know that can come off, I know that can come off as kind of rude. A lot of people get kind of upset when we go to end the conversation, but it's not because we don't want to talk to you. It's not because you're like annoying us or you're like a burden. It's simply because once we know you're safe, we have other people to help. So I kind of mentioned that we're not supposed to give advice. That brings you to the next point. It's really important to know that crisis hotlines are not long-term care. We don't diagnose any mental illnesses. We can't recommend any specific treatment, medication. We can't prescribe. We can't even really give advice, you know. At the end of the day, a UPS truck's passing by. At the end of the day, while we are trained, most of us don't have degrees. So we're not doctors, you know, even though a lot of us are in school to become doctors eventually. So we're happy to keep you safe and get you to a calm, cool place. We just can't act as a actual healthcare provider. After all, keeping you guys safe, it's our whole job. Most crisis counselors are completely volunteer positions. So the people that you're talking to genuinely want to be there and genuinely want to help. They don't have to be there. They don't get paid for it. They're there because it's their passion. We receive weeks worth of training beforehand, and you know, even if we can't be long-term medical care, we're perfect for when you're at that tipping point and you need some help. So if you are in crisis, and not even just suicidal, if you're in crisis, it's having a very, very bad day, very emotional, very high emotions, you don't even have to be suicidal to reach out to these lines. So if you're ever in crisis, I do highly recommend using our crisis hotline. CrisisTextLine is the one I work for, so of course I recommend that one a little bit more than others, just because this day and age, no one really likes to talk on the phone. I will list a bunch of other suicide hotlines, whether it be for child abuse, sexual assault, veterans. There's so many crisis hotlines out there that can help you. It just might save your life. So I'll put them down below in the description, and I just want you guys to remember that you're never alone. I'll see you next time.